Hey, and welcome to the Neurodivergent Musician podcast, where I explore the world of neurodiversity and musicianship. I'm your host, John Hart, along with Luna, my guitar, and today I'll be talking about executive function. Each episode is broken up into a traffic format where I'll share insights in the red section, improvised babble in the amber, and recommendations you might find handy in the green. So let's head into the red section for more insights. So let's get started by breaking down the whole executive function thing. Picture it like the conductor of your mental orchestra. It's a collection of cognitive processes that help you plan, organize, and complete tasks with grace and finesse. Think of it as your musical GPS guiding you through the creative journey. You see, executive function involves working memory, task initiation, planning, organization, time management, and self-monitoring. It's like having a symphony of mental skills working together to bring your music to life. Now, why does this matter for neurodivergent musicians like us? Well, it's because our brains have unique wiring. Whether it's ADHD, autism, dyslexia, or other neurological differences, these beautiful brains of ours can make the usual executive function dance a bit trickier. It's like trying to conduct an orchestra during a wild jam session. Sometimes things don't flow as smoothly as we'd like, and that's perfectly okay. But it's essential to understand that our neurodivergent qualities can affect our ability to stay focused, follow through on plans, and keep our music materials organized and everything in life, pretty much. Now let's dive deeper into the challenges that neurodivergent musicians may encounter when dealing with executive function. Number one, consistency in practice. Maintaining a consistent practice routine can be challenging for neurodivergent musicians, making it difficult to build the skills needed to excel in their musical pursuits. Number two is focus and attention. I think this is for all parts of life. But staying focused during long rehearsals or performances may be a struggle, as neurodivergent individuals may find it harder to filter out distractions and maintain concentration. Number three is time management. And this is in all areas of life again. Managing time effectively can pose challenges, leading to difficulties in allocating sufficient time for practice, performances, and other aspects of their musical journey. But obviously it can happen in relationships, it can happen in work, it can happen just in home life. Wherever it is, time management can be an issue. Now we're going to talk about time blindness in a future episode. Number four is organization, and specifically for neurodivergent musicians, this is of music materials. Neurodivergent musicians may find it challenging to keep their sheet music, instruments, and other musical resources organized, which can create stress and hinder productivity. I mean, if you run a music business, this is exactly the same in all areas, whether you've got it digital, whether you have it on paper, whether you have a diary or whatever it is. And it's the same if you're trying to do, all of those home tasks, family tasks. Everything can be chaotic with organization. Then we have task initiation. Starting new projects or ventures might be more daunting for neurodivergent musicians, as they may face difficulties in initiating tasks and taking that first step. Now, you can get a wealth of ideas all the time, but actually finishing them is a major problem. And then follow through on commitments. Completing projects or fulfilling commitments can be a struggle, potentially affecting collaborations and overall progress in the music making progress, along with other commitments in our life. Then we have self-monitoring and evaluation. Neurodivergent individuals may encounter challenges in self-monitoring and objectively evaluating their performance, which can hinder their ability to identify areas for improvement. And with all these things going on, we can then get overwhelmed and stress. The complexity of a neurodivergent musician, whether it's music making combined with executive function challenges, can lead to feelings of overwhelm and stress, impacting the overall enjoyment of their musical journey. Again, this can bleed into all areas of life. But if it's within the music making and that's where our heart is, if that's going on where our heart is, imagine where it goes on with other areas where we've got to use our head. It's even more challenging. Then adaptability to change. Neurodivergent musicians may find it challenging to adjust their plans or approach when things don't go according to plan, potentially leading to frustration and discouragement. And finally, collaboration and communication. Difficulties in executive function processes might affect communication and collaboration with bandmates or fellow musicians, making it vital to foster understanding and supportive environments. So let's talk about the good stuff, the how. How do we navigate these executive function challenges and find our groove in the music world? Well, fear not, my fellow neurodivergent musicians. I've got some relaxed, musical, loving tips for you. If you ride the rhythm of routine, okay, this is a tricky one. Sometimes we can be in and out of routine. I'll go more of this in the improvised section. But if you can try, and create a very simple structured routine for your life, and if it's for your music practice and performance, set specific times for practicing, taking breaks and unwinding. Embracing routine brings a sense of calm and predictability to your musical journey. The art of chunking, or bite size. When facing a big musical task, break it down into bite-sized chunks. Trust me, this makes it so much easier to tackle. Think of it of mastering a challenging musical passage. Start with the tricky parts and build up from there. My experience has been this when I went to go and arrange Money by Pink Floyd for guitar and singing. In the introduction, it has the cash registers, which are mimicked. It has the bass line, it has the Hammond organ, it has the guitar, it has the beat, all in one go. And this took me about a month to master. And it took me a whole 6 months to arrange the whole thing. But I broke it up into bite-sized chunks. Next is visual harmonies. Embrace the power of visual aids. Use checklists or progress trackers to keep tabs on your musical accomplishments. There's something satisfying about ticking off completed tasks, like hitting the perfect note. Next is the inner maestro. Practice self-monitoring and reflection regularly. Take a moment to pause, breathe, and evaluate your progress. Again, whether that's your music or your life. Okay, try not go into a past mindset or a future mindset. Try and stay present as best as you can. I know it's tricky, but sometimes if we use our breathing, it's a really great way of doing that. When we go and play our instruments, we can get teleported to another world. Celebrate your successes and don't be too hard on yourself for those off days. And finally, let your soul sing. Incorporate mindfulness and relaxation techniques into your music routine. It's like adding sweet embellishments to your melodies. Take a deep breath, let go of any tension, and immerse yourself in the joy of making music. And remember, my friends, our musical journey is a symphony, a beautiful, ever-evolving composition. Embrace the uniqueness of your neurodivergent mind, for it brings colors and melodies to the world that no one else can replicate. Let's create a supportive and inclusive community where our differences are celebrated, not hidden. And when the road gets bumpy, let's lend a helping hand to fellow musicians who might be facing similar challenges. So that's it for the red section. I'm now going to go into the amber section for some improvised babble. See you then. Okay, so we're now into the amber section of executive function. And I think out of every single symptom out there for neurodivergent brain, I think this is the biggie. This is the big one that I've always struggled with. I don't struggle with creativity. I feel like I've got an abundance of creativity. And, I feel I've got so many different strengths, maybe as a musician, maybe as that sort of visionary, the ideas and creative, and you might be feeling this too. But there always seems to be another side of life. It's the logical side of life, which, I can kind of see with the neurotypical world, really, that this is where I get absolutely lost, and my wife's, for instance, she's super organized, and I'm not. I'm not very good at organizing my life. I've got a little better over time, but obviously going through the mental health crises, going through COVID, and then finding out about more about my neurodivergent brain. I think when you get awareness, the symptoms can then heighten even more, so it can make even worse. But it just pops up all the time. And as much as I try and, I build systems and I can try and build processes and I can try and make things colorful, consistency is a real problem. And focus is a problem, and without medication, which, I'm in the process of working towards that it's a holistic approach. So I'm always on a tightrope with it. And, when it comes round to when I sort of point out those things of consistency, focus, time management, organization, tasks, follow through and commitments, self-monitoring and evaluation, overwhelm and stress, adaptability to change, collaboration and communication. I mean, goodness me, it's just like, to me, it feels like the list of hell in some ways, because consistency, oh my goodness, as much as I've just put up a wall planner for a year, and I have that up in the office, and then I've got a planner here which has dates on the left and then notes on the right. I then have I've got another planner. I've got other things, and I'm on it for like maybe a few days, and it just drops off a cliff. And I think it's the same with a morning routine. As soon as I'm in term time, maybe I can get into a rhythm, but as soon as I'm out of that, I'm completely lost at sea. And you can get a lot of sort of subjective thoughts and feelings from other people about it, but I've never been able to get it down. I'm in the middle of summer holidays at the moment. I feel completely lost because I'm not working as much, and I've gone into dad mode, and having that consistency is so vital. And that's consistent routine, consistent commitments. One thing I've always done is jumped into something with 2 feet, and then I realize I'm sinking because I haven't prepared. Like you jump into a pool thinking it's only like, half a meter high, and then before you know it, it's very, very deep. And then I'm having, I've made a mistake, so I'm having to climb myself back out of it, and then, repeat the process with a bit more thought and insight. But this is just a constant thing where you feel like you're second guessing yourself all the time. And you've got internal pressure, because if you make the mistakes, you need self-compassion to get over those things. But there's often the time where you can retract and then start going back into beating yourself up and doing these things. But then you can get it externally as well, from the people around you, whether it's, home, or you can get it from work, or you can get it from all areas. If you're not pulling your weight, and it feels like, I know I'm hardworking. I know the things I've achieved are not something that I could easily do overnight. So I know what I've achieved. It's like, look, I've done these things, and I've achieved them. So why am I feel like I'm failing in all other parts of life? And Gabor Mate talks about it's like a traffic warden at the frontal cortex, which has, a 4-way crossroads with traffic going in, left, right, and center. And for most neurotypicals, that traffic warden will be awake, and it will be, stopping traffic here, which is obviously your thoughts. But for neurodivergent brains, it could work differently with ADHD, dyslexia, and autism, depending on the symptoms. But that traffic warden can be dizzy, it could be asleep, it could be all sorts of stuff. And then these noises, these things are going in, in, out, shake it all about everywhere. And that's why I talk about bee brain and wasp brain and whatever it is, the hive. And bee brain is what the ADHD adults guys call that. But this is where everything starts to shut off. It's just like, I feel like I'm organized at one part of the day, and then I'm like disorganized at, actually it can be on an hourly basis, unless I've had people schedule in things for me. So, I work in schools doing guitar teaching, but I have a couple of companies now set these up. They send me the timetables and I sit there and people turn up. And I used to try and do this all myself, and it was, it was messy. I was always all over the place, and there's integrity to that, because to have integrity, you've got to commit to what you're doing. And if you don't, then you're not, you don't have integrity. And I sort of feel like if you have executive dysfunction, then it's really hard to have that authentic, true integrity. And it's just like this constant battle where you're like, I want to be organized. I want to manage my time better. I want to be more focused. I want more concentration. And as much as I want the meds, there is another side of it. I know they've got side effects. You put on more weight, you struggle with your sleep. You might be binge eating more and stuff as well. So it's just like, well, do I take the bloody meds and have these other side effects? Or do I just try and deal with this and people around me accept it and I accept it? I'm just going to fuck up a lot of the time. I have strengths in other areas, but these weaknesses, and I know when you can tell yourself, I'm not very good at planning. So if you tell yourself that, then, there's like a manifestation that you're not going to be good at planning. So sort of like positive manifestation that I am going to be a good planner. I am going to be a good planner. I don't think that happens straight away. I think what happens is if you tell yourself you're a good planner, things can come on your radar. Some resource or an item that you buy or whatever it is might come on your radar to make your life a bit easier. It's like, I like the phrase, show me how good it can get. I'm not putting any metric or goal in it. It's just basically I'm manifesting something positive. And another thing I've sort of been using recently is when I'm going through tricky times, especially with a lack of executive function, I don't know what I'm being, which is internal, or doing, which is external, but I'm being or doing it anyway. So I don't know what I'm being or doing, but I'm being or doing it anyway, which is basically saying, there's uncertainty there, but you know what? I'm pushing through it anyway. And I think that is the only way sometimes to do things. Yes, there's tenacity and you can be working on the same thing over and over and over and over. And sometimes you need a fresh pair of eyes, ears to be able to go, you're digging in the wrong area. Go and have a look over here. And sometimes it's under your nose. But I heard something on a podcast the other day. It's like, why do we use the word problem when we have the word puzzle? So instead of seeing problems, see them as puzzles. And puzzles mean it's gamification. You can complete a puzzle. And I've got a good friend, Sean Burgess, amazing, wonderful man who does a lot of fitness, but he does it in a really wonderful visual way. And he was talking about, instead of problems, you see them as escape rooms. So again, escape rooms have like the long way around to be able to complete the escape room, but there's always a quicker way to do it. And sometimes it's under our nose, and sometimes people have got to point that out. And I think having a support group like that, and I went on a retreat earlier this year, which is called the Creative Recharge. It's wonderful. surrounded by so many wonderful people. They're friends for life. And they're now helping me see things that are under my nose without me feeling like I'm failing with things like executive function. I'm not very good at organizing, you know, and I've said that already. I've just said that to myself. I'm not very good at organizing, which means I could potentially not be good at organizing. But if I go, do you know what? I'm good at organizing this, you know? I'm good at organizing this. I'm good at color coding this. I'm good at putting spreadsheets together. I'm good at organizing a website or a folder. So I am, but I'm maybe not good at organizing things that are important to other people in life. And I think this comes down to tasks. You know, there is a book and a sort of a card game called Fair Play, and it talks about all those invisible tasks, especially as a couple, that you've got to share. And more often than not, there is one person in the relationship that is taking on more of the tasks. Very, very apparent, you know, in our family. And that comes down to awareness. You know, I think with having a bee brain and with having all of these thoughts crashing all over the place and things, and struggling with executive function, struggling with time blindness, struggling with all these things all the time, you know, it's so hard to be aware of things. You know, when I talk about sensory overload, and then you've got social cues, and you've got all these other things, and then you throw in depression, anxiety, and stress and everything as well. No one can see clearly if they've got all of those lenses on. It's like all the lenses are dirty and you're just putting them over. I can't see these things. And there needs to be positivity with these things. And with sort of these positive things, you know, I struggle not only with routine when I'm out of term time, but I think, you know, when things change last minute, I find it really, really tough. Or I'm asked to do an activity or task or something last minute. You know, my insides twist up immediately, and I get these anxiety. I get this sort of flare up because things have changed. And more often than not, I've planned something to do, and I used to kind of master this back in the day where, you know, I used to just plow on outside of my comfort zone, which is good for, you know, for personal development and stuff as well. But if you're constantly doing that, you're in this sort of fight or flight mode, then it's a detriment to your mental health all the time. And you're not really living authentically. And ever since the crises and stuff, I have been more unorganized. I have been, you know, I've not been able to adapt as well to change, and there has been a lot more overwhelm and following through on some commitments. You know, I had a ADHD coaching session this week, and I didn't realize it was in my diary, and we came back from holiday and I had to cancel it because I was with the children, and I was like caught in this web, because if my students do that to me, I find it really hard because they've cancelled last minute. And if I do that to someone else, I'm just like, oh, it feels horrible. But I had to, because otherwise I was caught in these two worlds. And I can definitely say, you know, since having, you know, responsibilities in your life, when you become a parent, and then you have work, and then you have business, and you have relationships that you've got to nurture, and if these things are not working correctly, then everything else becomes an even more struggle. And then you've got obviously worldwide things, crises going on. And, you know, with everything we had with regards to my health or my wife's health, and we had COVID in regard, you know, with that period of time, and everyone's had it. And, you know, you go through periods of life where it's just really like you're fighting through concrete. And when you've got all those things going on and you feel like the scales are out, you're out of sync, or you're out of balance, and you're not really being your authentic self, or you're in transition between this old self, which was just completely out of balance, completely out of sync, and you're trying to get back to this kind of, wholesome place where you're completely your own being, and you're working internally, which that's the process I'm going through at the moment. But there's a massive transition internally and externally. Then it's really difficult because you're having to kind of rework the system, rebuild everything in a way that fits authentically. And that can create overwhelm and stress. And you're trying to self-monitor as best you can, but things can flare up very quickly. But I have found, since I have gone down the internal process, when I've got stress and I've got anxiety and I've blown up, I can get over it a lot quicker than I used to. So there is development in that. Organization, time management, all these sorts of things, they're not overnight if you're trying to make progress with them. I think, this is where we need our self-compassion. And this is where I've talked about in previous episodes, where if you've got a morning routine, if you've got some kind of routine and you drop off, it's fine. We are human. And there's some people, I saw an interview of Arnold Schwarzenegger the other day randomly, and he was talking about his fitness routine, and he's been doing it his whole life. And he said, it's like brushing his teeth. It is part of his routine. And that's fine because he was doing it every single day. That turned into a habit. And a habit then, brushing your teeth every day or having a shower or whatever you do, or going to the toilet. That's not a habit. That's just something that we do every single day. And so his fitness is part of that. He's got it to that point. And I think every time I see my guitar, I pick it up and play it, because I've got it into a mode where I'm in writing mode, and I'm always writing and I'm always expressing. I'm not learning on the guitar anymore because I've got enough of what I need. So that now has become integral to, it's not a set time every day. It's just when I see it. I went on holiday for the weekend and for a few days, and I came back, and as soon as I walked in, I was just like, hello there, saying hello to my guitar, because I missed it. And it's such a wonderful thing to have in your life. If you are, and if you're not a musician who sees your instrument in that way, I would steer away from the learning process and go into the expression process as much as you can. Because when we feel like this executive function is just eating up our CPU in our brain, and it's really like dialing up the negativity, or like we're feeling like we're walking through concrete, we need those outlets. And some people go walking because they go out in nature, and I do love walking. Some people do exercise, some people do, other things. When I have my first espresso of the day, and I remember Sting saying this, in an interview, that smell of the first espresso you have a day, it's like having the first sip of a beer for me. And if I have too much of that, it wears off. But there is, I'm in the middle of writing a piece at the moment, and I wanted to write a piece about being. And I feel like with an executive dysfunction, I can't be. I feel like executive function is always a doing thing. And I'm like, I just don't feel comfortable in that area. But I know I've got to do it. It's not negating it. It's just don't feel comfortable in it. Which means I need other people around me to help me. And I know that's a luxury to have. So I need to do it in bits as best as I can. And that's difficult when you're trying to, you're trying to be a parent for two other people. You're not just controlling your own your own life and organizing your own life. You're trying to organize theirs as well. And when you've got students, when you've got all these other commitments you're trying to do, when you've got to go and play an event, and this is why I've got agencies now getting bookings and things, because I don't need to worry about that side of things. All I need to worry about is just turning up. And I've got a set amount of gear now that I turn up for gigs. So I have an acoustic amp, I have a bag which has leads, a microphone, and my pedal. And then I have another bag which has stands, and I have a stool which has a guitar stand. And I have an SOS bag which has, like, you know, leads in it. It has, you know, fast fret, it has deodorant or whatever it is. And I know I'll go to the car and it goes bang, 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 straight in the car. I might take the extra speaker if it's a bigger venue. And I turn up and I know how to, you know, wrap the leads around the stand. And I think the reason why I have executive dysfunction is because it's not the same task every time for certain things, or that task has been set up by someone else. And when I try and learn it from someone else, it's just not my way of doing things. And so if I keep failing at it, then there's an expectation on it all the time. That, again, that system's been run by someone else. And this is why I struggle to work for people, because their systems and processes are set up by them. And I don't want to use their systems and processes. I need to use my systems and processes. And they might not be the best, but, you know, I have learned things from other companies, and I've learned things from other ways of doing things. Like if it's business, there's something called Clockify where you can clock your time. I love Google Suite. I love all these other things. And, you know, where my website is and where these things for a business. And what I love about it is it's all trapped online. But when it goes into real life, it feels like all the dots are scattered. And I get overwhelmed very, very easily because I don't know. I still don't know after years and years and years where things are or how things are set up. And I feel like I'm a passenger. I feel like I'm an assistant manager. And what I need to be is encouraged and empowered to be the manager at that point. And Andy Baker, who was on the previous episode, he mentioned about Richard Branson. Richard Branson stays with a project manager for a new product or new business for 3 months, working out all the nuts and bolts before he hands it over to that person. But it's done with positivity, empowerment and things. It's not done by, if you don't do this the first time, then you're doing crap or you're not doing a very good job. And I know certain areas of my life, you know, maybe when it comes to home life, that I'm not, my brain just doesn't still feel like it's built for it. It feels very messy and scatty. And that's kind of like an artist approach. Their art is perfect in some ways, but everything else around their life is distorted and it's all kind of messy. And that's really hard when you're trying to run a family life and trying to run other areas. But I think it's just self-compassion. I think it's just awareness, trying to see it from a bird's eye point of view. So anyway, that is my improvised babble. I hope you got something out of that. Now I'm going to go into the green section with a recommendation. So we're back to the green section, and I'll keep this very short and sweet, but there's lots of things. There's lots of planners, there's lots of project management tools and all these other things. You know, in our house, we have a family diary, and then, you know, I've just been able to get a new team member. So a wonderful thing that has access in the UK is something called Access to Work. And I applied for this, I don't know, we're in 2023 in August, and I applied for this maybe January 2023. So it took a good 6 or 7 months. And I just applied. I was like, right, fill in the application to try and get some support for my business, for work. And you can't get this for home life, but I put the application in, and 6 months later, they then said, you know, we want to give you a support worker, which is an extra team member, for 10 hours a week for a whole year. And this person starts soon. And she has 20 years experience in the music industry, and we think very alike. Her strengths and my weaknesses, and vice versa. So it's going to work out really well. But I think that is important. If you can get certain things set up in your business, like that, where you can get an extra team member funded by, other things, because if I try to fund it myself, I'd be always scrutinizing over the return on investment. And that's where things have died, because you can't put that much pressure onto someone straight away. But it just can't happen. It needs to be a natural process. And also, I don't want that person to feel like it's work. I want it to feel like they can turn up and they can be their true selves and authentic selves. So there's that. And I'd also look into, if you've got other areas of your music business as a musician, whether it's teaching, you can go get teaching agencies, entertainment agencies, whatever it is, to go and help you out in so many different areas. Just try and get a support network around your business. And then maybe your home life will start to get easier. You might have that extra CPU, that extra brain space to be able to kind of start to work on these things as well. And, as I mentioned, the sort of the good stuff like routine, bite size, and, the art of chunking, sort of visual cues. I've got a visual planner, one of those calendars from 2023 to 2024. And I've put it up on the office, and I've got a black pen and a red pen, and black pen is for business and red pen is for home. And it doesn't have a lot of space, but I put G for gig, and I put T for teaching. And then I put, if one of the family members is away at this point, or we're away as a family, and then I start to scrub out all the rest of the dates. So it's just, it might not work for a load of time, but I'm just trying to implement things that might make things easier. So those are kind of my tips, recommendations for the green section. If you do like this podcast, please do go and share it with other musicians. And, if they're maybe intrigued about the neurodiversity stuff, they can get in touch with me, or they can go and check out lots of things online. Musicians Union have now got this neurodiversity hub that they're starting to introduce. So there's lots and lots of info out there about awareness and how you can go through the process, whether it's dyslexia, autism, ADHD, and so many other routes. But thank you so much for listening to this podcast. The numbers are going up, and I see the countries are going up as well. And I'm really, thankful and grateful for everyone who's listened in and tuned in. But please do come and follow the Facebook group, which is Neurodivergent Musicians, where we can support each other. And please do get in touch if you have any suggestions or any thoughts on the podcast. And I look forward to chatting to you in the next podcast. Cheers. Take care. Bye.